Hello everyone, welcome back to our League of Legends DFS slate breakdown for today's slate. August the 10th should be a pretty interesting one. I do believe we are starting out our final week of games, so pretty exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to this one. I do think there's a couple interesting underdog spots I'm going to look to explore. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll quickly kind of recap where we've been. We did take the weekend off as we do, and then the game before, or the most previous 4-gamer, was pretty unexciting. So I think last time we started out, we had Nongshim over T, or I don't think we did end up having Nongshim over T1 at all. I don't remember where we left off. No, we did not. We were not a part of this 8-7. So 8-6 slate, we had Fred at Brion and Liv Sandbox, two pretty close matchups. I do believe Fred at Brion and LSB were both slight favorites, and I think we got both of those correct. And then on the 8-7th one, I don't think I said anything, but I did have a feeling that this T1 Nongshim series would be a little bit closer than the minus like 1600 odds that they were or something. So I don't know if I put any info on this one out, but I do think overall my feeling on this one was actually pretty correct as well. And then match history over here in the LPL, we had a couple interesting ones. V5 Top Esports, I definitely got this one very, very wrong. I thought Top Esports would beat the brakes off of V5 here, and it was completely the other way. I guess that's something we do have to keep in mind, is that sometimes form, it can be a little bit overvalued. Sometimes these elite teams just are elite. Rookie just put on an absolute clinic, was a complete monster here. LGD got the underdog win over RA, so that was pretty exciting. RNG got the win over TT. BLG got the win over WE, although this series was a little close. JDG and V5 both won. This was the slate that we took off. Two pretty big sizable favorites there. So yeah, I think overall still have a relatively decent feel on the league as a whole, and I'm excited for this one. This one should be pretty interesting. We are, again, in the final week of the LPL matchups. This will be the last week that we are making videos. I'm personally, honestly, a little bit excited to have some free time, a little bit more free time. But at the end of the day, we have 5 more days. Let's work through it. Grind has been real, but I've enjoyed being able to talk with everyone, and appreciate you guys all coming in. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. The first series up, pretty uninteresting in my opinion. I do think EDG should get the relatively easy win over AL here. Obviously, we rode AL pretty well when they were on kind of ascending. They were climbing up the ranks. They were looking relatively decent. Obviously, they had a very easy schedule on the way, and then we jumped off of them at the right time as well. Again, it wasn't exactly a insane read on our part by any means. We knew AL had a very easy schedule. We knew they had a very hard schedule coming up, and we've definitely been on the right side of that one. If we look over here, they're 1-8 out of their last 9, so pretty tough stuff from them. So I do expect EDG to get the job done here. We'll bring up the stats. This is expected to be one of the highest kill total games here. Do note that these are, I took these stats from patch 12.13 and later, so this is a very, very small sample size, roughly their last 5 to 10 games. Note that this is not 5 to 10 series, this is their last 5 to 10 games. So this could be as little as like maybe 2 or 3 series, I think in some instances, but for some of these it's a little bit higher. That's why I put it in the quotation, or in the parentheses there. That this is the roughly last 5 to 10 games, depending on the sample. But we'll keep that in mind. I like to have a very recent sample for my esports looks, just because how things change day to day and that kind of stuff. But as we could see, a little over 26 total here for this one. We've seen a couple games from AL just be pretty crazy from their depth standpoint, especially their game 2s. I think if they lose game 1, game 2 can get pretty out of hand. So I definitely like EDG. I do think they're going to be extremely highly owned. I do believe they deserve it. I think this is going to be pretty one-sided for the EDG side. But as we transition over to the second game, I do think this one's a much closer. IG versus OMG. Last time out, I believe last time out we saw IG was when they played RNG. Yep, and they made the series pretty close. The time before that, they got the 2-1 victory over RA. So pretty interesting stuff, obviously. And then over on the OMG side, the last time we saw them out, they got beat up pretty bad by BLG after they beat V5, and then they took a series over AL. So OMG are just wildly all across the board. IG are, pretty consistently on the lower end. They have picking up a few series over some of these low end teams like Ultra Prime and WE, but then at the same time they've taken like a game off of RNG, they took a game off of JDG up here, so it's pretty weird. They're just kind of all across the board themselves. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting one. Obviously, I do believe OMG are still fighting for a playoff spot. IG are eliminated. Things are going to come down to the wire here. I think 8 wins should be able to get a couple of these teams through to the playoffs just because of how top heavy and then like bottom heavy, I guess, these things are. That's why FPX are still alive. They could theoretically get in through with a 7-9. TT have a couple series. So these teams in here are fighting for a playoff spot. I think they're probably going to go AL are probably going to pick up a defeat here. Actually, these teams, Ultra Prime have 2 series left. I just completely lost my train of thought. TT have a couple series left. FPX have 1 versus WE, so they should get the win and get in. LNG have a tough series, so this playoff hunt is going to be pretty interesting. AL, they have very tough games coming up against EDG and Top Esports, so they're probably going to head down to 7-9. So it's most likely looking like if you get to that 8-win mark, you're going to be in. So this is going to be a pretty good spot for OMG to go ahead and get their win, and they'd be into the playoffs as well. That is the kind of concern here. Is I just honestly, at first glance, I did kind of like the IG side, but the fact that they're kind of in a win and you're in position here for OMG, where they just if they win this, they're probably in the playoffs. I'd have to imagine. LNG probably lose, AL probably lose theirs, so both of those teams dropped to 7-9. BLG are already 7-9. Then it comes down to TT and FPX. FPX will probably get their win, so they're 7-9. TT go against Ultra Prime and RA. They probably get 2, so they probably go up to 8-8. So at this point, I think 8 wins is enough to get you in, probably for TT and OMG. So that's the kind of concern when it comes down to this OMG versus IG matchup. Is this is essentially a playoff game here for OMG, and IG aren't really playing for anything. They're already eliminated. They have a couple of series coming up here, but I don't know. That's just kind of the concern. Is I just don't know what to make a read on. On this one, just because OMG are still playing for something, IG aren't. The past couple of games with these teams that are already eliminated, like we saw with LGD RA, these teams have not been too crazy with the end of split. They're not playing for anything kind of narrative yet. So I just don't know. I just feel like IG have been relatively decent. OMG have been wildly inconsistent. This could definitely be a good spot for them. One thing I do want to look at is the red side, blue side splits here, because OMG have been pretty crazy with them. So blue side OMG are 3-4, red side they're 1-1. So nothing too crazy. That is a small sample, obviously, but it is worth noting. IG are 0-3 blue side, and then 7-2 red side. That is actually pretty insane that IG are doing much better on a red than blue. Maybe they have something figured out there, but I guess oddly enough, I wonder if IG have been picking red. They picked red side here. They picked blue side back here. But now we're getting pretty far back. I don't know. Last time out, IG did pick red side, so I guess that is worth noting that if IG want to go to their favored red side, then that's fine for them. Definitely, worth mentioning. But OMG 3 and 4 on blue, so I don't think they're particularly great on either side. That is pretty interesting. This one's going to be pretty odds dependent here. I do think OMG will be a relatively sizable favorite, but I can't imagine by too much. This is one where I definitely think it's worth using our tried and true exercise of let's make our own personal odds here and then just kind of adjust accordingly. I personally see this as an OMG minus 220. I think that seems about fair. IG probably plus like 160, OMG minus 220. And then we'll just go ahead and adapt and react based on what the actual odds are. So we'll go here. Yeah, OMG minus 230. That's exactly what I was afraid of. That makes exact sense. That is about exactly in line with what my guess was. I don't know. This one is very, very tough. I just kind of broke down all the reasons why. It's just really interesting because we just have no clue what OMG team we're going to get. I feel like we've seen so many different versions of OMG so far. We've seen some crazy upsets like their win over V5, and then some crazy letdowns like their last series versus BLG. Obviously, BLG have been playing much better as of late. I don't want to put too much stock into that, but like they've lost to TT here. They got smoked by Weibo. Then they beat V5. It's just like we just have no clue what OMG team we're going to be getting here. Obviously, I think if we look back at some of these games, I do believe OMG have still been picking blue. Let's see, they picked blue against BLG. I think it's been a while since they played before that, though. Yeah, they picked blue against V5 still, so I do believe blue side, red side is evening out a little bit here, I think, as time goes on. I just don't know. This one is really, really interesting. I don't know. My first initial the big thing here is my first initial lean was I definitely felt like the IG side made a lot more sense. But on the other hand, I thought OMG, the fact that they're playing for playoffs here just makes it a little concerning. I just have a feeling that OMG are not going to make too many mistakes and make the game uninteresting. But at the same time, I feel like if OMG are going to play differently because playoffs are on the line, then I feel like they're kind of prone to do things that they're not normally meant to do. So I don't know. That's just like the kind of interesting fold here. I just personally don't want to get baited into thinking, oh, OMG have to win this. They're going to play cleaner, but it's like, that's not kind of how it works. OMG probably have been playing to win every series. It's not I don't know. I just don't want to fall into the narrative too much. So I am going to go with IG. That was my initial lean. I thought this series was going to be a little bit closer. Disregard that. I thought I odds this exactly how I thought it would be, which is I thought it would be minus 220. They were minus 230. I just feel like IG have actually been playing relatively decently as of late, specifically Mole. I do think that is the difference maker here. Is IG have actually been pretty good through mid and jungle, and I think that is the weak spot of OMG. I think Aki and Cream specifically have not been playing well, pretty much by most standards. Cream's champion pool has become significantly problematic as we've seen come as of late. I think that is going to be the very big difference maker here. I think Shun is much better than Aki. I do think, as much as I love Cream and would love to see him continuously grow and all that stuff, I do think it is going towards the Mole side as of right now. Just the last couple of games, we've seen some pretty good stuff from Mole. Obviously, I do think Shanji versus Zika should be pretty interesting, probably in the Shanji favor. Abel and Cold probably in the OMG side as well. However, I just have a slight lean and slight feeling here that Shun and Mole will be able to... I do believe Shun and Mole will be able to do enough here and make this interesting. I think this one probably goes 3. I definitely have concerns kind of both ways, but honestly, my kind of gut feeling is that I think OMG are going to recognize that this is a win and you're in playoff scenario. So they're going to play not how they normally should. And I think teams do. I think these, the non-elite kind of contenders, in a way, I think when you're in these pressure situations, I think they're more scared and more afraid to make plays. And I just think they get into their own heads and they just play differently. And I think that's ultimately like kind of one of the worst things you could do is be afraid and play differently. Obviously, we know IG playing for nothing. I think they've been pretty good their last couple of series, not even just the RNG one, but I think, dating back a few series now, I think they've been looking a little bit better. I think Mole and Shun are going to outdo Aki and Cream. And I think On has been doing enough, and I think Zika has been doing enough to compete with Shanji and Abel. So I'm going to go with IG here. It's not the best. I don't love it. I think it's probably going to go 3. However, I just have a slight feeling here that OMG are going to play a little scared and play a little bit differently and kind of get in their own heads here. And I'm going to go with the IG side. So that will be our first underdog pick here. Again, total nearing 25, and that's pretty heavily weighed towards the IG side. However, I do like I just like the IG side here. I do think obviously this LPL games the totals are much higher in the LPL, so I do like EDG. They make a very strong pair up to go with the IG side as well, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Then over in the LCK, Genji minus 5,000 over Fred Brion. It's pretty hard to argue against that. Genji are looking absolutely insane. Obviously, that seems a little crazy because Fred Brion have been playing a little bit better as of late, but I mean, Genji just seem like on another planet over in the LCK. Genji are just completely wiping the floor, dominating everyone, not even close. So it's going to just be a Genji 2-0 here. I assume they're going to be an insanely high-owned team slot. They're against one of the best team slot teams, which is Fred Brion. It's hard to argue anything there. The other one that is pretty interesting here to me is T1 versus Live Sandbox. The odds on this seem absolutely insane to me. T1 minus 285, that seems absolutely insane. So, if we look at how we've been going as of late, obviously LSB have been picking up a lot of pretty intriguing wins. They have wins over DRX, KT, and Damwon, so that's 3 pretty respectable wins over the 4th, 5th, and 6th place team. So they're playing pretty respectable teams here and beating them. And then T1 themselves, obviously last time out, I think they barely scraped by this win over Nongshim. They kind of barely got this win over Hanwha, but Hanwha obviously we know is the worst team in the league. They had a close 2-1 over KT, and then they obviously got swept pretty hard by Genji here. So T1, obviously, we know have been playing pretty shakily as of late, and I think overall these teams are pretty close. I would have this as a slight T1 favorite. I obviously wouldn't go as far as to say as LSB or they should be favorites in this one. I definitely think T1 are better, and they should be the favorite. If I were to price this myself, I would say T1 minus like 150, minus 130 maybe even. I think this is a slight T1 lead, not minus 280. That is absolutely insane to me. So I definitely feel very good going to the LSB side here. As far as DK goes, I don't think it's that great. Obviously, we look at the total, like a 24.4. Like T1 have been playing pretty slow. I don't love it, especially from a DK standpoint. As far as like if you wanted to get a little bit more unique, I definitely think it's possible, and I definitely wouldn't necessarily X them out. I'd be interested to see how T1's losses have looked. So let's take a look at that. T1's match history losses. We'll look at these. T1's losses, let's see, they gave up 15 and 9, so not very good there. This T1 one, they gave up 14. And this one, they gave up 16. This one, they gave up 17. So, yeah, that's not much. They've not given up much in these losses, so... I mean, granted, we know LSB are kind of on a different... wavelength when it comes to when they win, they score a good bit. So I definitely would not be Xing LSB out here. I would definitely have them mixed in a little bit. But again, it's not a priority to me. I'm not going to have them triple stacked or primary stacked here. I think it's just too hard to get away from these LPL numbers. specifically like EDG in a very good spot. IG and OMG, I think there's good arguments for both of those teams. Obviously, my lean is towards the IG side, but I'm not going to X out LSB here. I am probably going to X out Genji and Frederibrion. So for me, my core, I think, or my building ideas are going to be EDG, IG, and LSB. Mixing and match EDG with those underdogs, I think get some nice quality mid or AD carry captains here. And yeah, I think that's good. That's going to be my idea. Like I said, I feel like the IG OMG price is pretty fair. I do think there's definitely good reasoning for that. I can't find too much of a reason there. That's kind of a more of a feeling one where I feel like IG are going to make the series pretty close, and getting a decent plus 170 price tag on it, definitely feels good. But the T1 LSB one just feels absolutely crazy to me. I just do not see that series being that one-sided in the odds. I think it's probably going to go 3. I think T1 probably take it in 3, just because they do have that kind of elite kind of lethal edge in a way. Like they just have a little bit of a different thing, but I would not be surprised to see LSB take this one. Like I just feel like LSB have been playing really good. They got wins. They have consistently beat these like the couple middling teams. Like obviously we just saw them beat those teams that we just listed: Dom1, DRX, and KT. All 3 of those middling quality teams, like decent teams enough. T1 have been struggling a good bit. I just think those odds are pretty insane. So I'm going with LSB. They're probably going to, my guess would honestly be T1 2-1, but I just think this is going to be a really close series, and you're getting a very, very nice plus 225 price tag on LSB. So that is the side I'm going with. But overall, we'll go ahead and look at the players, as we do before we get out of here. So we're going to set the patches to the just past couple, just because the game does change that much, and I'm pretty interested to see just a little bit more of a recent sample size as we are getting towards like the tail end of the season here. So it is going to be IG, EDG, and LSB. I think those are going to be how I view the slate, this sample size. So overall, when you look at the groupings, it's a little hard to see because the IG and EDG logos are so similar, but pretty good from IG, especially we see Mole, On, and Shun all above 70%. Wink and Zika are both down there, but Wink is even at 70. We have a lot of good numbers here. Prince, Croco, Dove, Kyle, and Closer. Dove is above 70% as a top laner. That's pretty insane. From the EDG side, things are not the best. Obviously, we do have Junjia playing, not JJ, so keep that in mind. Although EDG now, they have, I believe it's worth noting that EDG's last series out, I think versus WE, they swapped their junglers out mid-series. So that's something to keep in mind, is that's definitely something that can happen with EDG. And that was a series they won, by the way. So they won with Junjia. They brought in JJ for the next one. So if you want to be safe and not mess with these EDG jungler situations, I think they're probably going to win the series 2-0. So if you think EDG win game 1 and they swap out their junglers again, that's definitely going to be a very bad hindrance to your lineup. So that's something to keep in mind. Maybe that's something you would prefer to go somewhere else with the jungler position. I'd very much like Shun. I like Croco as well. They've both had very insane kill participations. So I'm going fine with both of those. If you wanted to leave out Junjia and JJ, that situation altogether. But overall, I think the player pool here is very strong. You can make a very good argument to go with IG and EDG heavy stacks. LSB numbers are really insane. I might end up trying to get an LSB big stack in, just because hopefully they're going to be pretty low owned. Their numbers are not good, or sorry, the team numbers are not great. They're going against T1, who is still for some reason just overvalued kind of perpetually. So I like LSB. I like maybe mixing in some of those big stacks. I like the IG numbers here are a good bit as well. We see Mole, On, Shun, and Wink all above 70%. Even Sika at 60%. Obviously, EDG's numbers are not the greatest, but I mean, it's Viper at the top of the whole thing. And then we see Mako at 70%, Scout at 65, and then obviously we know the situation there with Genjia and JJ, and then Flandre down at 57. So there's a lot of options. I don't think there's you're too pigeonholed into going a certain direction, but yeah, I think overall this is going to be a pretty interesting one. So yeah, I think that'll be it from me today. A pretty interesting slate, honestly. Very rare it's been a while since we've had, I think, a solid feeling on getting a couple recently decently sized underdogs in. IG plus 170, LSB plus 225, EDG at minus 325. Like, honestly, that seems like a good spot for them. EDG for the 2-0 plus 100. That's not bad. If you wanted to attack these games a little bit differently, I think you could definitely go LSB T1 over 2.5 at plus 115. I would not touch the Gen G slate or game at all. So I think there's going to be interesting ways to attack this one, and I'm pretty excited for it. I do think this is turned out to be actually kind of decent slate as we talk about it. Again, I feel much more comfortable with LSB than IG. However, the numbers for IG OMG are much closer, or sorry, they're not closer, but the expected kill total is much higher in that one, so that kind of offsets it a little bit. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for me tonight. I will see you guys all again tomorrow, hopefully at a similar time. And thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good night.